Hey, welcome to the Ryan Got the Bread podcast. I'm talking to Dominique Flipping, a loan advisor, and you dabble a little bit in real estate investing too, right? Let's get right into it. First of all, how you doing?
Good, man. Living the American dream. Can't complain.
You coming from lunch? What are you doing today?
Today, we're wrapping up the final stages on our last flip that we just completed. We're doing
already?
The whole punch checklist deal. You know, when you go and apply for the CO, and then a whole list of little knickknacks on come up.
Gotcha. So I guess go into your background. Basically give me your resume. How'd you get to where you are today?
Cool, man. So I actually started off with, I'll go away from the beginning. I started off originally where I found this company. I was cleaning overnight because my dad owned a cleaning company. And I used to listen to Robert Kiyosaki on my
Yes. Everybody. So the last person, I did one yesterday.
Yeah.
Wes Williams, he said the same exact thing. He read Rich
He's
Dad,
like
Poor
the
Dad.
Pioneer.
Changed everything.
It changed everything, right? It was like one of those audio, and books that kind of went against the grain from the original, go to school and get a good job and then start on your career.
How old were you when you encountered that?
I might have been my senior year in high school.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so it probably came at a perfect time. I always knew that I wanted to own a business, kind of like following my dad's footsteps, where I originally thought I was going to own a cleaning company, but I found out I personally don't like cleaning.
I feel you.
So I wouldn't want to do that as a career. A guy that I talked to, when we were going over, I was like, I'm going to do a cleaning company just like my dad. And he's like, honestly, you can make money doing anything. Do you really love cleaning? And I was like, nah, I'll be honest with you, my room is kind of messed up right now. But I cleaned with him, and then I wound up coming across Robert Kiyosaki, and he just was like, listen, the land that we have today, there's not going to be any more, and the game of Monopoly is one of my favorite games.
Yo, that's funny. It's my favorite game. I'll be talking mad trash about Monopoly. So do you remember who gave you the book? How'd you encounter it? How'd you learn about and it was Rich Dad, Poor Dad?
Yeah,
okay.
I think I just was on YouTube looking up how to become rich.
Yeah?
Yeah.
That's
and I'm
crazy.
like, man, I got to figure out how to become rich. And I just kept Googling, and I just found different guys on YouTube, on like Jay Morrison and all those different guys are on YouTube that started giving information on how he got started on his duplex and everything like that. And I'm like, man, this is perfect.
Dang. Okay, so your dad owned a cleaning company, so it was his own company, or how that works?
Yeah, so my father owns F&S Commercial Cleaning. He's actually transitioning out of commercial cleaning, but he cleaned all of the Applebee's from New Jersey to Delaware. He had banks. Yeah, so my first initial thought was like, this guy's making $1,000 and he's just sitting at home all day. I want to do that. And
Nice.
But I found out it was a lot more work that went into getting started.
It's funny how because again, last episode, his dad bought a house and he was trying to get into investing, and it's funny how parents are super influential. That proximity seems to be a correlation between getting involved in entrepreneurship just in general. What did your mom do? How did do you think that's why you got into what you're doing?
Yeah, man. So I'll be honest. So I had a little bit of both backgrounds growing up, right? So parents as a young age, they did split from each other, right? So I mainly for probably a good, I'd have to say pretty much all of my elementary till I got to high school, me and my dad didn't have a relationship together.
Okay.
Right? But during that time period, I lived with mom. So it almost it's just me and her for that whole years and up until she just recently got married a couple years ago. But during that time frame, it almost was like a maturity level that had to grow up a lot faster, because at the time I had to help mom take care of the house. So I worked, gave her some money to take care of the house. So kind of put those habits into place on, maturing a little bit faster.
Gotcha.
And then transpiring, but with my mom, she mainly just worked in, regular traditional 9 to 5, come home, we got a couple extra dollars, let's go party, and, live a pretty decent life. But they all, on my mom's side, they work hard. All of them work. I mean, Pop-Pop's working. He's like 80 years old. Like, just hard-working people. So I always work with them. dad, on the other hand, all of his brothers and sisters all own a company. Like father, his dad owned a company. He had 3 boys. One boy owns an auto mechanic. The other boy owns a cleaning company. And now my dad owns a cleaning, plus he has a power washing company.
So they're all entrepreneurs.
So they're all entrepreneurs. So we kind of got the humbling where we work, we're happy with what we make, and we're all happy. We're real family oriented. And then also learn from dad as far as, how to run a business and own a business and take that to the next level kind of deal and take a shot on chasing after what you love.
I like it. So you read Rich Dad, Poor Dad, then what?
So I read the book and I say, man, I'm going to go ahead and start getting into real estate. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to get into real estate, the best thing I could do is probably go get my real estate license. Mm-hmm. So I went and took the real estate exam. And
at 18? Or something like that?
Yeah, right at 18. No, I had to be 19 at this time. Because by now I've graduated, because I was listening to him in high school, graduated high school, and then now I'm turning 19. And now I go ahead and go apply for my real estate license. I fail 4 times.
Oh, damn.
Yeah, not the best test taker. I fail 4 times, and then I pass on the 5th.
Yeah, and I think the 5th, then if you fail at the 5th time, you got to, like, take the class again or something like that.
What it is with me with these exams, man.
Yeah?
It's brutal on me, man. I've yet to pass even with my mortgage exam, which I'll get into,
Yeah, we'll get there.
So I passed, and then I had this, so I started doing real estate, but at the time I was so young, none of my peers were buying houses.
Yeah.
Most of us are still living home.
Mm-hmm.
So it was definitely a learning experience because a lot of them, well, one, I'm learning myself, but then also you're showing up to go show somebody a house and like my beard hasn't even connected yet, right? Like I got patches and everything. So that was like another learning experience that I had to get through. So, but I got to a point where I was doing pretty good. I was at least 1 closing a month, enough that I saved up and bought my first house at 21.
Dang.
But I got nervous because I never owned a home.
What year did you purchase a property?
2015.
Okay. So that's after the crash and all that, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I save up, and at the time, I was the dual agent thing. I was working overnight and doing real estate by the day, which I thought at the time was a great idea until I realized I had to sleep.
Yeah, if you're doing 1 closing a month, I mean, you're always in a transaction then, so that's tough to do.
Yeah, so it was really hard. So my business started to kind of slow down because I couldn't, once you work all night long, you come home, you crash, you wake up, and you got like 100 emails, like, what's going on? And I'm like, oh, this is not doing good. So my real estate business slowed down, but I kind of fell into like a little bit of a rut on that business because I was so nervous by not being able to pay my mortgage and bills because I never lived on my own. So I wound up getting a roommate, which was my brother. So my mortgage payment was about $600. So I brung him in, and he paid me about $500 a month to live there. And then I just covered all the utilities and everything like that. So we pretty much split everything.
So this is like a house hack a little bit.
Nice house hack on the first property. And I met
when you bought that house. What was your mindset? Were you saying I'm going to invest, or was it just I need somewhere to live and it's better to buy than to rent, or what was your?
So my initial thought was to always get a roommate.
I got my thing connected. All right, sorry.
No, you're good. My initial thought was to buy a house that was going to be pretty affordable, that I could get a roommate, and then eventually be able to. Eventually one day rent it out and get to a bigger house.
Okay. So you had like a strategy there as far as, you wanted to monetize that property.
Yeah, because I worked so much that I barely was home in the first place. So it really didn't make any sense for me to buy a huge house and never even be there. I knew I wouldn't. Yeah. I was 21. It was like the bachelor pad for me.
So is that how you got to being a loan officer? Like how did that step happen?
So I wound up meeting my now wife, who at the time I was still working overnight and doing real estate sporadically, where she basically said, all right, enough with the overnight. I need you sleeping at home. So eventually I said, you know what? Well, I guess I'll try to find a different job during the day. But I wanted to stay in the real estate field because I did like it. So I wound up doing like a whole bunch of Indeeds and different websites to find a job. And I came across a company called Freedom Mortgage, who was doing a job fair for their company. So they had different fast track programs available. I didn't know it was an on-the-spot interview, so I did show up without a resume. But luckily, I'm pretty good with talking with people, and I did the sit-down interview with the guy, and he went over everything. And I was like, what are you looking to do? And I'm like, well, I guess I'll be an underwriter. Because my thought was like, if I'm an underwriter, I'll process the files, and then I'll go sell real estate as an agent later in the day. And he's like, well, talking to you about your background, why don't you just become a loan officer? I'm like, I guess. What do I have to do? He's like, well, the fast track program is if you get 3 opportunities to pass the exam. If you pass the exam, then you're hired. And you can go ahead and start selling. And I'm like, okay, perfect. And then he was like, well, how much you want to make? And I'm like, $40 a year. And he was like, done. I was like, what? And at the time, I was just getting started, so I wasn't making a ton of money.
Man, and these salespeople with the commission stuff, they'll tell you anything, man. You could have said 200. They'd be like, you got it. You just got to work hard. You're going to get it in commission.
Yeah, man. So I wound up coming aboard with Freedom, and I failed the first exam with a 74. I needed a 75 to pass.
Oh, man.
Yeah, so I missed by 1 point. So I'm studying hard, and you had to wait 30 days before even taking the exam again.
That's right.
So I'm like, all right, well, you know what? I don't think I need to study as hard. It seemed like I was pretty close. I'll just keep reviewing, and I should be fine. And I fail again with a 71. It was like one of the most nerve-wracking experiences. So they pulls into the office, and they're like, hey, man, listen, because you're the first group, we'll give you one more opportunity. If you fail,
you're fired.
You're fired. So I'm like, it was like one of the hardest I've ever studied for an exam. And then I wound up.
The pressure, too.
Yeah, and the pressure, too. And I wound up passing with a 77 on my final exam.
So I took the SAFE test, too. And I thought, because I took the real estate exam, the broker's exam, but the loan officer test is hard, man.
Dude, it's really hard.
I feel like it's a hard test.
It's really hard. I thought I'm not a real good test taker anyways.
Yeah, so it's an achievement. It's, because certain people are just either good or bad at taking tests. I mean, it just is what it is.
Yeah.
That's a hard test.
It is a really hard exam, man. So I went through the exam, and I finally passed, and then I was able to start selling, in which was mainly my primary, when I was at Freedom for about 3 years doing cash out refinancing.
Did you learn a lot, doing loans for other people?
Yeah, I learned a lot. Learned a lot about the mortgage industry, but also learned about people also, because when you're working in that call center, I mean, you're doing it across the United States. You got customers from every different background, and all of them have a different story on why they might have fell into this particular rut on needing cash out. So you do learn a lot about talking to people and just being in the industry. And
so how did you get into, because you're flipping houses now, right?
Yes.
How did that?
So
tell me your first deal.
So how I got started was, at the time, my now wife got pregnant, right? And the mortgage industry started to transpire bad. Rates we're selling 3.25. All of a sudden we go up to 5.25, 5.875.
Yeah, no one's doing a refinance.
No one wants to do a refi. So at the time, it was just me working, and my wife was home pregnant at the time. So I come home and I tell her, like, hey, babe, we had just bought our brand new house that we just moved into. We rented out our last house. So at the time, I had 2 mortgage payments, 2 electric, 2 water, and a pregnant wife. And she already had a daughter. So we had a daughter and
so
another
you got
one.
a lot going on.
A lot going on. A lot of money going out, not a lot of money coming in. So at the time, I had about 10 grand saved. And then I wound up getting our new house that we bought, the basement wound up flooding. So I got an insurance claim. So now I had about 20. So I tell her, I say, hey, babe, listen, market is slowing up. we got to go do something. I want to look into flipping houses. And she was like, flipping houses? What? You don't know how to swing a hammer, right? Honestly, at the time, I didn't even have tools. But I just seen everybody doing it online. And it was just kind of just that mindset of, if other people are doing it, there's no reason that I can't do it.
Mm-hmm.
So I told her we're going to go flip a house. And so I wound up connecting with an agent and saying, hey, listen, I want to go flip a house, and I need to get a property.
So did they find the deal for you, or were you looking at deals, or how did that go?
So at the time,
because as an agent working with like first time flippers is tough, man, because they don't know what they're looking for. You don't know if they're actually going to pull the trigger. So like, how did that relationship with the agent and everything go?
She was definitely a trooper.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like I can't lie. She was definitely a trooper. So we went to a couple houses that, she would send some over to me, or I would, while I'm at work, look up different properties that might have popped available. That's actually how I found my first one. I found it online on Zillow.
Okay.
I hit the market that same day. I say, hey, we got to go take a look at this house.
How long have you been looking once you found that? Before that?
So I was looking for 6 months.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was looking for.
Didn't find anything you wanted to pull the trigger on?
Didn't find anything I wanted to pull the trigger on. So the reason that I started to speed up a little bit more was I took out a personal loan, which I highly don't recommend getting started. But I just knew that to flip a house, I was going to need a lot of cash. So I took out like a $35,000 personal loan.
Oh, so you're just sitting there paying it.
Exactly.
Without using it.
So I have now in total 50 grand. So now I'm like, man, listen, for 6 months, we got this payment going. It's not making any money. You need to pull a trigger, because what happened was you get outbid it. And I'm like, honestly, at this point, you'd be better off just going right in or above asking, because you're going to lose more money holding the cash. I
tell people this all the time. I mean, if your numbers work, just buy it. I mean, because especially now it's super competitive. Like, there's so many people out there.
Competitive.
They're like, we have 10 offers. You know? It's like, oh, shoot.
The market just came on the market today.
Yeah.
So it gave me a little bit more urgency to have to buy, including the fact that now baby's now born at the time.
Mm-hmm.
So we finally go ahead and go to settlement on that house. We buy it at $98,000. My first deal, I used the hard money lending.
Or you used hard money and you had the personal loan, so you're like super debt going on now.
Super debt. One of the most like anxiety, stress level that I've ever been in. Newborn baby, where you're barely sleeping, you got all these bills coming up, and the mortgage business is not improving whatsoever.
So you're still working at Freedom Mortgage?
Still working at Freedom.
But it's commission-based, right? So your base income is like small, and if you're not closing that as many loans,
you're not making any money.
You're under pressure.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I thought in my head that by the time that my business, when I was at Freedom, we were closing on making tons of money. And I'm thinking, well, if I get a personal loan, maybe in a couple months, it'll start to pick back up. It never picked back up.
So you paid 96?
90. I got it for 98.
98.
So we put down 20%. We put down about $20,000. So I had a few grand to get the project started.
From the hard money loan, did they gave you the rehab money, or from the personal
So for
loan?
the hard money loans, the way they work is you have to give your contractor money to get the process started.
Mm-hmm.
And then after you get the process started, then they'll give you a draw on what's complete. So for an example, like, hey, Flip, the roof's going to cost you 10 grand to get this done. I need at least 3 grand to get started to get the roof done. So I had to pay him the 3, and then he finishes the roof, and then I call him for a draw. They come out, make sure it's done. And then they go ahead and they wire me the money minus the inspection fee of $200, and then I pay him the balance.
That's part of the tough part is even when they give you, like, you got to front the money on the front end, and a lot of times, like with my experience, the project, like, if I don't have enough money, like, I want to get the roof, I want to get the siding, I want to get the landscaping done all at the same time, and it'll slow your project down if you can't front all that money, because then you got to wait for the draws. Did that kind of happen to you, where you don't have enough money to pay all the people at the same time, or you like?
So no, because I took out that personal loan.
So you had to You had the bread.
I had the bread. I had the bread. So
the bank's bread anyway.
yeah, I had somebody's bread, not mine. So I was able to give him almost pretty much half to go ahead and get the project started.
Oh, okay.
So he was able to go pretty fast. But I made a mistake on that one with hiring the contractor.
Yeah? What happened?
Yeah, man. So
how did you know the contractor? Where'd he come from?
So I did a deal with him probably right when I got started in real estate. He hit me up on, like, I was paying for like ads, and he hit me up, and I helped him buy a house. Great guy. He was a roofer by trade, right? But he was just branching into the construction field where you're actually taking on a huge project.
But I see where this is going.
Yes. Yeah, you see where this is going. Mm-hmm. So, so he gives me his quote, and it's a beautiful quote, the cheap rehab. And I'm like, dude, you're going to be able to do everything for just this price? And he's like, yeah, $17,500. And I'm like,
wait, $17,500 labor?
$17,500.
And materials?
Yeah. So I'm like, dude, this is perfect.
How big was the house?
House was 1,400 square feet.
Okay, so pretty small.
It's pretty small, but it needed a roof. It needed new kitchen, bathroom, floors, paint. Everything. It needed some serious TLC, some electric. So it definitely was at least a $30K rehab.
Yeah, for sure.
But at the time, he was a friend of mine, and we're so cordial. So at the time, I'm like, man, this is perfect. Until we got into the project, right? So my first initial thought, as the new investor, I'm thinking, I give you half the money, you're gonna bang out half the project, call me up, say, hey, this is done. Then I give you the other half, and then you're finished, and we'll be in and out in a month or maybe two. Did not work that way whatsoever. So at the time, I worked in Mount Laurel, and the other project was in Winona, which happened to be about 45 minutes away.
Okay.
So I didn't have a ton of time to get over there because I had to get home and help take care of baby because mom was home with baby all day.
Yeah, you don't even have the time to stop by if it's, you're working till 6:30, you got to help with the kid. Then it's 8, 9, 10 o'clock.
Yeah. So I didn't go over there all the time, which was my first mistake that I made. So what happened was I would go back like a week, and I'm like, this looks exactly the same it did last week. And then
sounds very familiar.
Yeah. And then I come back again, second week, and I'm like, there's pink flip-flops on the floor.
What?
Why is there pink flip-flops on the floor? Those are girl flip-flops. And it still looks the exact same way that it did the week before. Mm-hmm. So then that's when I learned that it's business and not friends. And to make sure you have contracts set in place rather than so that everyone knows
what the expectations are.
So
what ended up happening? He just disappeared?
So what ended up
Did you call him? What was he telling you when he...
So when I give him a call, I realized it was going downhill when we're about 3 weeks in and it looks the exact same way that it did 3 weeks before. Mm-hmm. Nothing pretty much changed. So what ended up happening was I said, listen, man, I have to move on this property quick because I got 2 payments coming out.
And you're paying the personal loan and the hard money loan, which is interest only, 12% interest?
So. It was close to 20%.
Oh,
yeah,
man.
So it was ridiculously high. So what wound up happening was I wound up trying to put a little bit of fire, hey, man, we got to get this done quickly. This is still looking the same exact way that it did before. You told me it was only going to take 30 days of rehab. We're now we're in 60 days now, and it's not complete. We're over a month, and it's still not complete, and you told me 30. Mm-hmm. So we wound up having to have a conversation with him and relieve him off of the job.
And you gave him half the money already.
Yeah. So luckily at the time, my father-in-law was pretty handy. So he was able to kind of come in and help save the day, to be honest, because I still at the time don't know how to swing a hammer. Dang, so once I'm left with, a somewhat half-what done project, I'm looking at oh, man, I don't even know how to finish this. I don't know what to do. Yeah. Which was another lesson that I learned was that if you're going to be in the business, just learn as many aspects of the business.
You at least have to understand it. That's how
Understand
I
it.
feel like. You might not know the tricks to get the framing up, but you got to know like what it takes to put framing up.
You gotta,
the type of plumbing, this, that.
you have to at least know something about the trades. Like you may not ever do it, but you have to have some knowledge.
Yeah,
on
because
it.
they'll be talking to you. It'll sound like Spanish if you don't know.
And
Like,
that's what happened, because he would say, well, I had to delay because of this and we had to do this, and I'm like, oh, okay, like because I don't know. You could tell me anything.
yeah, exactly.
You could tell me. But my father-in-law was handy, so when we had the conversation with him and we found out he doesn't even know how to hang drywall himself, he just was a roofer that he was trying to do a whole bunch of subs with.
Yeah, those guys who do like rough stuff, they're great. Like they'll knock the roof out in a day.
Same day.
Or framers can do, but when it comes to finishing's always been my struggle. Like,
Oh my God.
it's so tough.
Dude, to get the project finished is the hardest part.
Once you get like it painted, and then you got it, the trim takes forever. Putting all the vanities in, the finished plumbing, all that stuff. It takes forever, man. Like, and then you go to the house and you're like, yo, nothing got done.
Yeah.
But it's like, yo, the trim takes a long time to do, you know, if you only have a couple workers.
Yeah. The
So-
finishing touches are always the hardest because it's always like the tedious work. It's
And
not-
the guys that are good at doing like the big rough stuff are normally not so good at finishing. It's like two different personalities that you need, you know?
Yeah.
I know I struggle with finding finishers all the time.
The finishers is really, really, really hard, man.
So your father-in-law kind of helped bail you out? You
Yeah.
figured out a homie deal or something? Like,
Yeah,
yo,
we
we'll
wound up
figure something out here.
saying, hey, man, listen, I need help finishing this project. I'll pay you whatever you need to be paid, but I need help finishing out. So he wound up, like, I'd have to go in and help him, which is where we started to, like, kind of learn how to, that's where I started to learn how to do the things, because he couldn't always go because he still worked.
Yeah.
So he was like, I'll help you,
But you got to put in
but
that
you
sweat.
gotta
You
also help
sweat
out.
here. Yeah.
So, and then he knew that we were already in a jam because we're making so many payments. So he was like, don't pay me now, you know, just,
Oh, that's helpful.
yeah, I don't want any money, but it'd be nice to be compensated for my time. You know, the family.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So, of course, we compensated him for his time when we actually settled.
So how did it end up turning out?
Perfect. We wound up still finishing the project with $30K in. And we wound up selling it in a week at $180.
Oh,
With
wow,
five
that's a
back.
nice hit.
Yeah.
So I feel like that story perfectly, it says like, because everyone sits around and analyzes and says like they're looking at budgets and they never actually do anything, right? Like I think it's super cool and I super respect when people pull the trigger, take a shot, get a personal loan. People would say not to do that, but if you didn't do it, maybe you wouldn't have started. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You run into problems. The contractor runs off and you still made. That's like almost a home run sounding kind of numbers.
Yeah, we
despite
wound up
the
making,
issues.
despite the issues, we still wound up making 30 grand off of it.
And that's nice.
Yeah, no, it was really nice. I mean, I think the hardest part for me and my learning experiences on it is the hardest part with a lot of people. And where I thought about it in the beginning was I'd gamble on myself any day,
I love that.
you know, because if I don't succeed, it's because I didn't do it correctly. Like, there is nobody to blame. No one put a gun. You know, I would bet on myself any day of the week.
Dude, I have this crazy analogy and no one agrees with me. But like,
What is it?
I'm nuts where like, if I get in my car and I drive somewhere and I'm at a red light and someone hits me in the back, I still think it's my fault. Like I could have left at a different time or I could have tried to move. Like, so that's like always my mentality. Like you got to take ownership.
I'm the same exact way. Like, I take ownership in even things that aren't even my fault.
Yeah.
Like,
It's not the contractor's fault. I should have known that he was going to run out. You know, I should have been able to tell that, you know, he was acting funny or whatever.
Yeah.
It's my fault. you
And
know?
that's exactly what happened. And that's why my wife was like, no, he's got to get out of here. Because what happened was it wound up getting prolonged because I'm like, well, maybe I'm just not guiding
communicating
him.
properly. Like, what
I'm
am I
not
doing
guiding
wrong? Yeah.
incorrectly because I always take ownership in everything. And I can't help it.
I do. That's the same thing I struggle with because I just look at myself like if I have employees or people under me or if I'm in charge of the situation, like it's my fault. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You know?
Because at the end of the day, it is.
Yeah.
It is your fault.
Well, because it's empowering though, right? Because
Yeah.
if I can manipulate the world around me and be in control of it, that's powerful. If I feel
Yeah.
like other people are doing things to me and I can't do anything, then that
That's
sucks,
a really good point.
you know?
Yeah,
you
no, I
know?
didn't even think about it that way, but
Yeah,
no, that's true.
It's super empowering. I am the controller of my universe,
Yeah.
no matter what's happening around me.
I truly believe that everything, that I'm in control of everything. Whatever I think, it will happen, and it can happen. And
It's big.
yeah,
That's a
I'm
super big mentality to have in this
huge
business.
on laws of attraction. Huge on
Yeah.
that. So that's actually why he wound up getting relieved, because wife was like, listen, I know what you're talking about, but
Yo, it's funny because you need somebody else to be like, yo, stop. Like,
this is not your fault.
this guy's out of here. Like, stop it.
Get him out.
Because I do the same thing. I'll be like, oh, let's give him another chance. And,
Yeah, maybe I just didn't communicate with
Nah.
them, and she's the yin to my yang. And
Yeah, you need that.
She's the lioness, and she was like, that is out.
That's awesome. That's super cool.
But yeah, so we settled, and we got a check back, which was like at the time like one of the biggest checks I've ever seen. You know, got a check back for $55,000 after everything was paid. And
You look at it in the bank account like, ooh,
yeah,
it's a big ass number. I've never seen this number before.
yeah. So we got that check back, and my wife was like, "Oh my god!" Like it was, you know, because my wife is more of a, she's really has to see it before really believing in it. She'd go with me anywheres, but she's always
But she's
cautious.
still like, hell no.
I call her my what if scenario. Like any ideas that I have, I run it by her. Sometimes I'm like, oh, I really don't feel like doing this. But I do it anyways because she always says, well, what if this happens?
Well, you need that. Like when people bring ideas to me, like I think it can come off like you're being a jerk, but I'm trying to shoot holes in your idea, and if it stands up to that idea, then it's probably something good to do.
Yes,
you know, so
that's
it's important.
so true.
Yo, you can't self audit. Like you do need to bounce an idea off someone else with a different
you have
perspective.
to. And that's why
she'll
I have
fix
to
your
do.
blind spot.
She does. She does tremendously. Because when I used to first think I'm like a deer. Like once I'm looking this direction, like nothing can do wrong, right? Like
Which is a good trait. Like that's how you take action. Because if you worry about all the problems, you'll never do anything.
You'll never get there. And that's where we balance each other out tremendously.
Because she finds out blind spots.
She finds all my blind spots. She rises everything. Because I'm like, cause I believe that I control my universe. So if I'm thinking I'm going to get this done, I'm going to get this done. But by her always saying, yeah, well, what if this happens? What if this happens? I'm like, oh my God. Well, I'll just do this. But it helps me prepare for if those situations do come.
Advanced your plan. Now you have some remedies to do.
I've learned to love it after going through getting beat up a little bit. I'm like, okay, I get it. I'll run it by you and see what you think and bounce off her.
That's cool, man.
So that came with maturity. But in the beginning, I'm like, oh, you're just being negative. I got this.
So tell me more about this business that you're starting as far as being a loan officer. And, we were talking off air about, how you're like a one-stop shop for getting someone started.
Yeah.
So tell me about
So we wound up still continue to keep flipping houses, but the market didn't get any better. And by being in a call center, it was really negative. And at the company that I was in, they treated you in swim lanes, so you could only do one thing. And I'm like, well, this market is doing better. Why can't I sell that? And they're like, no, you're going to do it what I tell you to do because I pay you. And I didn't like that feeling. So I said, you know what? I came home to my wife and said, hey, babe, I'm going to leave my job. And she said, as long as you clear off everything, you can do whatever you want. And I'm like, yeah, I'll do that. Right. And so earlier this year, January will be a first year as a full-on entrepreneur, no company 9 to 5, and be able to maneuver and do my own thing in the company. Was
that a hard decision to leave? Like what was the moment where you were like, yo, fuck this. I'm done. I'm not working for these people anymore.
Man, so we had successfully completed the flip already. And we had just put another house under contract that we're going to get ready to start flipping. And I just got to the point where I didn't like the control that they had for me, being as though that if the market is slowing down in this area, why can't I come over here? And they're like, no, I tell you what to do, and you're going to stay here and sell what I give you kind of deal. And they started this new tier thing where if you were in a certain tier, you only got the leads that they gave you. So I'm like, well, why would I do this? This makes no sense. And I looked how much money I was making, and I'm like, So I was like, basically what I told myself was, you're telling me that you can't leave this company and go make more money for your own family.
Gotta bet on yourself.
Bet on yourself.
Oh, that's fire. Yeah. Yeah, I get excited these conversations.
Yeah, man. So I said, you know what, man, there's no way that I can't hunt and provide for my own family. There's no way. And so I told her, like, I'm out. I'm quitting, and I'm gonna go ahead and go outside and go be an entrepreneur, and we're gonna go ahead and, do mortgages, commission only, and I'm gonna start my company for, to be able to broker for hard money loans. And she was like, okay. She's always with my ideas. She's
she
always
support you. She just want to make sure you.
Are we gonna be okay? And the first couple months were absolutely brutal.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
You got zero income minus, whatever side stuff you're doing. But.
Yeah. So the first couple months were absolutely brutal.
What were you doing specifically?
So I was doing. So I left there and started to do I started another company in the same time. So I started doing credit repair in the same sense.
Okay.
Actually, to backtrack it, I started the credit repair when I was about to get ready to leave Freedom. So my initial thought process was, if I get a couple people who need to get their credit fixed, I'll come out with a pipeline. Mm-hmm. So I started to fix everyone's credit and get them prepared to get ready for my transition out. It did work, just not as effectively as I thought it would have worked. Okay. I only wound up being able to get like one or two people before I just said, I'm out, and quit.
Gotcha.
So that's pretty much how I got like one or two deals right in the beginning.
For credit repair.
From credit repair.
Okay.
But what I didn't realize and completely forgot about is that it's a mortgage. They take about 30 to 60 days to close. So
yeah, right.
I didn't get a check for about 3 months. Those were really rough 3 months.
I bet you got no money coming in.
No money coming in.
Just an idea saying, I'm going to make it work.
Yeah, just an idea of saying I'm going to make it work. So luckily, we had a couple grand left over from the flip that we did, that we had just settled on.
Oh, yeah. So you saved that money the whole time?
So we saved, we saved some of it. Mm-hmm. Because remember, we had the personal loan.
So, yeah, you got to pay stuff.
So I had to pay some stuff back. So we wound up, because I didn't anticipate the fact that we were going to need money to live off of, and that same money was going to be used for the next project.
I see.
Now we start penny pinching from the money that needed to be used for investing. Mm-hmm. So then we wound up starting the next project with not much money, but luckily we went through the trenches and I had to do most of the work myself.
I've been there.
Yeah.
Especially, I don't know how to do, I could do some stuff, but I'm not good at it either,
Yeah.
So that's brutal.
It was definitely brutal.
How long did it take? So you didn't hire a contractor?
Not in the beginning, no. I hired a roofer, and I just said, hey, we're going to get a couple handy guys for the day, and I'll pay them, $100 or $120 a day, and just help me learn how to do it and do it with me and try to learn as we go kind of deal. And at the same time, we wound up also, the mortgages are now starting to pick up because now I've started to build my brand, and now we're at the point where we're closing deals. And that's when we wound up starting to get a lot more people saying, hey, man, I see you guys are working on the house, because I'd be advertising us fixing the house. And then that's when we started to really pick up our brokering for hard money loans, helping other people get started investing. But halfway through the project, I did wind up hiring a contractor because it came too overwhelming.
Certain stuff you just can't do.
Yeah,
I don't know how to do it.
Yeah. But I wound up learning a lot, man. I learned how to run wires, hang drywall, bathrooms, plumbing. Wound up learning a lot, framing. I wound up doing pretty much the bulk of the project. But it just became too overwhelming with trying to do mortgages, hard money loans. And
so the second flip, what the numbers look like?
Numbers on that one was 96 purchase.
Where are you getting these houses for $96,000?
Oh, man. So how I found this deal
how
was,
you find it?
I didn't even tell you how I found it. So my my wife became a real estate agent, so she had a Bright account. So I wound up going online looking for the property. Now, I know that when I started out in real estate, and how most people start out, is you don't really know how to price a property in the beginning, right? So I'm like, all right, well, everyone I felt like looked from like $1 to like 100, 110 maybe for houses. And everyone's all in this price point because that's where most first-time investors are looking.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like a swimming pool full of us. So I said, well, you know what? What if I just happen to look up a little bit higher and see what might be up there? Maybe somebody overpriced something. Found this house listed for $160. Short sale. Yeah. It was a short sale, though. But it was listed at $160. And I told her, and I'm like, this house hasn't sold in 5 months. I know that the contract's I know that she has to get ready to renew her contract because she hasn't gotten it sold. Mm-hmm. If they didn't sell it in 5 months, I mean, they don't have any offers, so we'd be coming in as the only one, and maybe we can negotiate something with her. So we made an offer for $90. I said, let's just shoot at it. And we shot at it, and
in a short sale, the seller will accept it.
The seller will accept it, but then we had to wait for the bank took it also because it was already sitting. So I'm like,
that's crazy.
Yeah. So we lucked out pretty good.
You just were like, let's offer 90 and see what happens.
Yeah, because we had bought one around the corner for 98. So I'm like,
so you knew that was what you should pay.
Yeah,
for. These banks are nuts, man. I don't understand what they're doing.
Me neither.
What the heck they have it listed like that for?
160. I'm like, who? No one's buying it. It's been sitting here for over a year.
See, that goes to show you, I mean, just take your shots. Like I tell people, and I don't even follow my own advice, you should be sending out offers all the time.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if they're low because they'll say yes eventually. Someone will say yes.
Somebody will say yeah. And we did. We went through a couple offers, and I said, well, I know that people want to buy in this area because we bought one around the corner. So we know that there's tons of buyers here. We just had to find one in this area.
Yeah, I'm a big advocate of that. Like, I like to stay in once you do a flip in one area and you know the neighborhoods and the numbers, it benefits you to stay there because then if I buy a similar type of house, I know exactly what the numbers are. I don't have to try to be cute looking at a different neighborhood and the economics there are different, you know? Exactly. I always tell people that I feel like if you stay super local, not just local, but if you stay in the same area, it's a lot easier to calculate.
It's like fishing. You know, like once you get used to this pond, you know what jigs and rigs that you need to fish in this pond.
Just keep working.
Yeah, keep working it.
So how much was the rehab on this?
Rehab, we went from a cosmetic job to a full-on gut. So rehab originally started off at around, we thought it would be around 30. Wound up coming in at 40.
Okay, that's not too bad.
Nah, it's 10
What's
grand
your
over.
process? How are you, so my process when I see something, maybe the MLS, and we want to go look at it, we'll go out there, and we'll go through the property. We'll come up with like a rough number just off the top of our head, like, okay, this is this big. We want to do the kitchen, the windows, roof, HVAC, basically everything. That will cost 60 grand or whatever it is. And then if we get a good feeling about that, we'll come back and measure it. We'll do a floor plan and then narrow down the budget. And then I'll work backwards to figure out how much I should offer. You know, so I'll just add the purchase price. I'll add my profit. I'll add, holding costs. And then basically I'll just work backwards and come up with whatever the purchase price should be. That's how I do my process. How do you analyze properties and, come up with the construction budget and all that stuff?
Yeah, so pretty much similar. On the first deal, we had contractors come out and give us quotes, and all of them, that's how we were kind of figuring out the numbers, because I didn't know anything. The second one, I kind of got a pretty good understanding on how much things cost. So I was able to eyeball it out a little bit, but I still was off by 10 grand.
Okay.
Which kind of, dinged me a little bit in the end.
Yeah. The problem with that, it's so competitive now that you have to get your offer in so fast that if you have to wait for a contractor, the house is going to be gone.
It's going to be gone.
That's why I don't even bother with that unless they're with me that day. It's hard to do. So, PSC, again, if you Google the real estate investing, it's going to tell you to get contractor quotes, which is the right thing, I feel like. But functionally, it's just you can't do it all the time. So.
Yeah, it's hard because, you think about it, 6 months, you're dragging a contractor around for a project.
Oh, yeah, they don't want to deal with that for no money.
For no money. Let me just come around.
Come give you a quote, and if they give you a real quote, that takes a couple hours.
Yeah. Do you want me to give you a real quote and ride around with you for 6 months?
Yeah.
That's tough to do.
They're going to hate you.
Yeah. Yeah, man. So we wound up just having to just eyeball it and get a good understanding on how much things cost.
So your budget went over 10, but how did it turn out? Was your ARV?
Oh, yeah. ARV wound up working out perfectly. We sold it 2 days on the market. So acquisition was 96. Rehab wound up being 40. And then we wound up selling it at 185.
Okay, and then you got a little bit of holding costs, but it's still good.
Yeah, a little bit of holding costs.
And you did hard money on that as well?
Yeah, hard money. So with holding costs, my all-in with everything turned out to be 46. It was like $6 grand.
Oh, that's not bad.
That's
good.
Wasn't awful.
I like that. How do you feel about why do you use hard money versus, say, what I've been looking into and I haven't pulled the trigger is, trying to find some private financing?
Well, for me,
because hard money is brutal, man. The fees are ridiculous. The points and then the draw fees, like all these costs they piss me off. Like, because it's not like upfront, like the draw fee especially is just put all the fees, like tell me what they are,
Yeah. So I normally go over the fees with everyone when I do a hard money deal. They are,
Yeah.
I look at them like it is like mob terms.
Yeah,
right?
it is.
Listen, like,
It really is.
I'll get you this cash, but I need my money back in 12 months. And I need interest on it, and I'm going to charge you points up front.
Mm-hmm.
Like, dang. But I looked at it like, you know what, honestly.
It's the cost of doing business.
It's a cost of doing business, right? Maybe one day I don't need to use hard money. I'll just use my own cash, but I got to go ahead and work up to doing that. And without it, I wasn't going to get started in the first place.
This is what what's the alternative? Like when people are saying, like people getting mortgages, just buying houses, they'll say, well, I don't want to pay PMI. I'm like, well, then keep paying 100% interest in your rent. What's your alternative? If you don't have the down payment, pay the PMI, refi out, something like that. So.
Oh yeah, sure. Just come.
Everybody wants to be so cute and smart, and it's like, you just gotta execute and then make the best decision that you have available to you.
Yeah, I mean, either that or save up the $150,000.
Yeah, right. Yeah, sit around for 10 years saving $150K to get started. I mean,
so I kind of looked at it like, you know what? Honestly, it wasn't my money to get started in the first place.
Yeah, that's true.
So
you make less by using it, but you still make money that you wouldn't have had.
If I make $30,000 and still keep my full-time job, I pay them a couple grand.
Yep. Do you have any rental properties?
I have one rental, which is okay. I don't think that I'm gonna get any more rentals for a while. I think that
What's your thought on that? Yeah.
So my thought process on this is pretty much it's another business. Dealing with rental tenants and things breaking and having to go fix them and make sure things are fixed and chasing down money. And I could hire a property manager and have them kind of help me, alleviate some pain. But even with them, it's still going to be, if something breaks, still got to get fixed. And it's still like another expense.
So you feel like you got to get your systems in place first to handle that?
I think that, the best analogy I have is like life is like a buffet, man. Just eat what's on your plate first, and you can always go back and go get seconds.
I like that.
If I take the next 10 years to just focus on just my lending and keep flipping houses and keep stockpiling money away, then when I get in my 30s and getting near 40, then go ahead and go buy an apartment unit. Now they're all in one area, and then maybe hire the property manager to just manage this one area.
That makes sense. My thing has always been that we flip houses to generate capital to own rental properties, right? Because flipping and renting are very different, like you're saying. Flipping is like a full-time job. Like if you're not present at the property or have hired someone to do that for you, like it's going to be an issue. You just got to be present. You can have a great relationship with contractors. They lose their damn mind after a while. Something happens.
Yeah.
They got child support payments. They have to, a lot of times these guys are paying one job with another job. Like I give this deposit, he's using that money to go over here. Like they don't manage the money properly. And these are the contractors that are going to be cheaper you know, because you could hire an expensive company, but then you're not going to make any money because they cost so much to do the rehab. So,
Yeah.
you know, I guess give me a sales pitch on your business that you do. Like, who's the right person for it? How can they reach out to you? You know, what do you do for them?
Yeah, man. So we have to reach out to. I mean, we have multiple different ways. One on our website, which is movingforwardinlifestyle.com, which has a breakdown of all the products and different things that we can help with. And then of course I'm on Facebook. Most people find me on Facebook or Instagram. Have been the bulk of where everyone.
Yeah, what's your Instagram?
The Instagram is Flips Effortless Mortgage. So.
All right, and I'll tag you and all that stuff.
Yeah, and then of course on Facebook I'm just Dominique Flipping.
All right. Yo, why did you name the business something Flipping? Come on now. How is that your last name? It doesn't even seem like.
You know what's so? I get this. You know what I get sometimes too? People are like, "You really change your name for your business?" I'm like, "No, like why would I ever do that?" But it's a good question. But no, I get that actually a lot. I've yet to find some sort of. I've tried to come up. The greatest thing that I've found so far, and I'm still working on it, is get flipping with flip. I can't find anything that's like a good tagline for my last name. But it looks like it would go so perfectly. I just don't know where to put it at or what.
You gotta figure that out, man.
Maybe hopefully somebody can maybe somebody can help me find some sort of tagline for my my last name. So the bulk of I deal with seasoned investors. A lot of my business comes from, and what I do love is working with first-time investors or just getting started in real estate. They might have like a rental property, but they're really intrigued about that side of it. You know, I think I love that feeling of being able to help someone start a business and be a part of that beginning journey and see and help them, you know, with providing.
Be free.
Yeah, because so many people come to me like, man, I really hate my job. And I'm like, man, I've been there, like, you know, and or some of I seen it online, and how do I get started? And so the bulk of my business comes from first-time investors, and I do like working with them. And by dealing with them, I've gone through so many different questions, and I've built out a really awesome system to where I have now, just this week actually, I've built out a blueprint for them, which basically gives them tips and knowledge on what to look for the property, but also gives them an automated step on getting their business actually launched. Because I feel like sometimes there's so many, you got your licensing, attorneys, insurance, title companies, agents, lenders. There's so many different things, and sometimes it become overwhelming.
Yeah, and for one person to do is really difficult.
For one person to do. So to set up the business and then also learn about real estate. You know how hard it is to take the exams and get through and cut your teeth and learn from different deals. You know, so it could be overwhelming to learn, and I think that holds a lot of people back. So I've built out this blueprint that I think will help more people, that I've been doing it with people, is pretty much walking them step by step on setting up their licensing. You can't go to the next step until you get done your license. And it has a button that you have to click to get to the next phase. And then I've had it generated to where the next phase you'll go ahead and say, okay, we're going to go open up the bank account. By now you should have your certification of formation. You have your good standing. If you don't have it, you can get it from here. If not, you should also make sure that you have your EIN number, because you'll need this to go to the bank. So it's almost like an automated mentorship that I don't even charge anyone for.
Coaching them to get the basics at least done to establish, right?
Establish. And so we help them get their business set up, and then help them get their contractors, who to look for your contractors. If you know contractors, here's the experience that I've had with different contractors. Here's where I've made my mistakes, so you don't make those same mistakes. I'm like the most honest guy. If I mess up on something, like I'll tell you, I've messed up, don't do that.
That's why, because social media is crazy, because like if you just post like your wins, everyone thinks a different thing. And I try to post like messed up stuff because people get a funny idea, and it's like, this is not sunshine and rainbows. Like most of the time you're dealing with problems.
Oh yeah, all you're doing is putting out
your
fires.
win is getting a check. That you have one day where you get a check, and the other 90 days of a rehab is just a headache.
Yeah, no, it really is, man. I've made a ton of mistakes, so I've put that into the automation and the coaching that I do for them, that I do for free, because at one point when I wanted to get started, I've reached out to different mentors and they've helped me even when I was younger and asking people. Like there's just one guy that me and him have been friends, there's multiple of them, but one guy in particular that I always talk to still to this day that no matter what always answers all my questions. His name is Fred. He's like a huge mentor for me because he used to do real estate. So when I was younger, I used to go into when I started to learn about the Robert Kiyosaki and things like that, I would go talk to him about real estate. And no matter what, even though I was young and wasn't barely even working, he would always answer my questions for me. And I always thought that was a huge thing to do. And even now, to this day, like if I need something or if I just want to hit him up or run something by him, he's still there and never charged me a dime. And I was like, he's like, all I ever asked you to do is pay it forward. So now this year, I mean, we've now helped start almost 15 people start real estate investing. Wow. Yeah, and actually get their projects started.
These people all
bought a property, execute it, and help them say, hey, here's what to look for. I help them, as far as help them go over their budget. Okay, well, did you make sure you got these things with your contractors? Did you take care of these things?
And you're doing that all for free?
All for free.
Dang. See, because it's funny. A lot of people reach out, but they're flirting. They don't pull the trigger, man.
They do.
I don't know what that is.
And that's true. I've sat down with people and talked to people who, asked a bunch of questions and never pulled the trigger.
What do you think is the difference between someone who's just looking and someone who
actually pulls the trigger?
Yeah.
That's a good question. That's a really good question. I have yet to really figure out what really is I think it comes down to your why you're doing it. Like my why was you got to take care of your family. If you don't go bring food home, no one's going to eat. That's a strong why.
You don't want to rely on an employer to dictate that.
And I don't want to rely on someone dictating how I feed my family.
Maybe it's that ownership too, because you're taking ownership of like your what happens to you.
But I do that. And sometimes it does. Sometimes I'd spend a half an hour or an hour talking to someone and just they never pull the trigger. And they might come back a year later and ask a question, But for me, I'm like, you know what? He did it for me. So if I have some spare time that I can spare, I gladly will. But you never really know. Some people, might be inspired that day. So it's really hard to tell who's actually going to kick the can that day.
Do you think people should get their real estate license if they're looking to get started in investing? It's a big question. Everybody asks.
Everyone always asks.
I don't think it matters that much, honestly.
It's
a convenience to me.
It's a luxury. I would say it's a luxury, but at the end of the day, I think that it's another job. I feel like in flipping, there's multiple hats that are within this. You have your investor, who's a guy that's going to be, you as you're funding the deal. You have a contractor who's actually going to be working on the deal, and then you have your agent who's going to be helping to, find the houses and get the house purchased and then help get it sold. So even though if you have your real estate license, you're still adding on another job. So if you would prefer not to have another job, then you can still make good money, right? If you just want to keep your full-time job and say, hey, I'm going to invest this money, I just want to keep an eye on my project, can you make sure you help me find a project that's going to make sense? Can you help get the property sold and I'll just sign my money and I'm just investing my money?
So I think there's some advantages and disadvantages to having a real estate license when you're investing. It's very convenient to be able to get lockbox codes and just go out there and you get your own commissions back. So when you sell or buy, you get, a portion of that back. But then you got to pay for licensing and you got to deal with the office politics a little bit sometimes. And you also have to be careful legally because you have a different standard once you have your license. But I feel like this question is always one that people like to just get hung up on so that they don't do anything,
That
because
is true.
They're like, well, I didn't get my license yet. I'm like, you don't need it.
You don't need it.
But there's pluses and minuses. So I just wondering what you think.
I agree with you. I think it's a luxury. I think it's disadvantages like any other thing. And then there's advantages, like you said. Like if I just feel like going out to go check out a property today, I can go do it. But if you have an agent, you got
to wait for them.
You got to wait for them to go meet you over there. So, and that's the hard part on finding a good agent, because sometimes there's not full-time agents.
And regular residential agents, I don't think always are good for investors because they don't actually know how to analyze properties the same way,
No, that's
another thing.
That's 100% true, and because there's a lot, I feel like there's so many agents now.
Oh, everybody's an agent.
Everybody has an aunt who's an agent, and they're all like, "Oh, well, my aunt's an agent. She'll just help me find the house," and it's not as easy as it seems. That's what I'm saying. It's another job.
Well, especially now. So are you finding all your deals in the MLS still? Because it's super competitive. I feel like the margin is shrinking every day.
It is shrinking.
And I'm like, man, I got to do, I haven't pulled the trigger on doing any marketing yet for off-market deals, but I feel like you're going to have to because of the margin.
Yeah.
Shrunk.
Me and my wife actually just had this conversation actually after this one that we pulled off of MLS. I think that there's still good deals on there. I think you're just not going to make as much.
Of
course,
basically
the
just
margins
force you to
are
make
just
less money.
Yeah, because there's people out here using hard money loans and private loans that, for me, if I invest 20 grand of my money, I get back my 20 plus another 20. 100% return on my money. That's a lot of
That's a lot.
So to do that, that's it makes it a lot more competitive.
So
to compete.
were you thinking of advertising or
Yeah.
what was that conversation?
So that conversation was like, hey, listen, we've got to do a better job on getting directly to the consumer right before it gets on the market. So you have your real estate license. You're beautiful. I will just put you on a postcard and say, hey, who's looking to sell their house and needs to sell quickly? And just
give you a call.
Yeah.
And she's an agent?
She is an agent.
Yeah, see, I'm working on that model too because you can just get listings if they don't want to wholesale it to you for less,
if we can't buy it,
we could try to sell it for market price, or you could sell it tomorrow to us. That's what I was thinking.
And that's where the trouble comes in also, like you're saying, is because
ethics with that
because it's kind of like, they could probably even sell it for maybe more if we listed it, but instead we're trying to maybe buy it wholesale.
I'm super big on that, and that's why I got beef with wholesale. Not every wholesaler, but you got to do that ethically. They do need to know that you are selling your house for less than what it's technically worth.
To me,
and if selling it fast has that value, then that's fine. But they need to know that.
Yeah, it's almost like a check casting place.
Yeah. You're getting ripped off, but you want the money now.
You want the money now. If you want the money now, we can go ahead and wrap it up in 2 weeks and get you your cash, and you go ahead and go about your way. Or if you would rather market it and see what we can really, sell this for, you might make more money, but you're going to have to wait a little bit. So if you're okay with that, then here's the options. But
it's funny you're saying that because that speech that you just had is the same exact speech that's in my head when I think about marketing for off-market deals.
It is, and that's where it comes into, if you don't have your license, well...
Yeah, then you could do whatever you want.
Can do whatever.
But
we're just regular.
Ethically, still, it's nasty.
It is.
I've read an article in Philly. Wholesalers are buying people's properties for super cheap. They're just giving the house away, and they don't know that. It's in South Philly, and the house is actually worth $150,000, even though it's a shell. They're getting it for $40. I'm like, this is crazy.
Yeah, man.
That's tough.
It is. So it really does come into an ethics thing, because it's kind of I know that, you could probably sell this for more kind of deal on the off market, because we haven't explored it yet. So I'm not sure how that process is going to go. But I think that in business, as long as you do good business will happen.
Yeah.
I'm big on just doing good business. So if you know that, hey, listen, I can buy this property from you now, cash, right now, and we can close in 2 weeks.
Yeah, as long as everybody knows what they're getting.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, so I think that as long as everybody knows, hey, what we have, then we should be fine.
Do you feel any extra responsibility being a black entrepreneur in real estate? Do you think, do you feel any extra responsibility to educate people or to, do your business in a certain way because of social implications at all, or are you just I'm doing my thing? And
no, I don't think that I ever feel an ethic on it. I think that what drives me is coming from a part of family that didn't know much about real estate, and not knowing much about how money works. I think most importantly that drives me, which is why I've done, a few free seminars for adults, and then I've gone actually to schools. Like I've gone to Camden High, where I've actually came in.
I've seen you post some stuff.
Yeah, so I went and I reached out.
That's what I mean. Like, I feel like in those type of communities is the least knowledge about money.
That is true.
Which is a big, big, big problem. That just like the information, like your dad had a business, and that influence probably related to you doing what you're doing now. And so if you don't have anybody showing, like, no proximity to that, it's tough. So like me personally, like that's why I kind of am doing a lot of this media. Of course it's for everybody, but I do feel like for communities that have a lack of knowledge, or they don't have a cousin that does a business, this is like my way of like providing that information. So hopefully that helps people.
No,
I was wondering what you're like, how.
Yeah.
Like, do you feel like a little extra, like you did Camden? It's like, that's super impactful. Maybe one person was like, yo, this guy came and, that's like the Robert Kiyosaki book.
Yeah.
Boom, now they're thinking about it.
Yeah, man. I mean, for me, I guess I have this incredible dream in my head, and it influences me so much, is that, and everyone, and a couple people in the family, but my biggest thing is if I could get years later and somebody finds me and says, hey, you spoke to me at my school years ago and it was really impactful for me, and I'm now successful and can take care of my family today because of what you did at my school. I think that to me would be like the ultimate success, like for me, that I could really solidify it. Plus I want to make sure that I hustle and make, parents proud and make my kids proud and have the higher standards. But I think that if I can have that impact on a kid, I think that would be huge for me. So that's why I like to go speak to, because when I spoke into like the inner city and I realized how bad it was, when I had the conversation with a kid and I'm like, I started telling them about different things they could do to get started. And then I was like, you know what? I don't think you guys even know the basic. I was like, does anybody in here know anything about credit? And one girl raised her hand and was like, I think that's hotel credits, right? Like you can get credits at a hotel from, and I'm like, holy crap. Like this was the senior class. They're about to graduate at the time in like 6 months, they're about to graduate, and she thinks that credit is hotel credits from, going to the casinos.
We got to do something about this education stuff, man. That's crazy.
Yeah, and I think that that's what happens with so many of us, and I think that that's where, when we talked at the beginning, was about the, talk to people. When you do the cash out refinance, you talk to so many people who come from different backgrounds, and they get themselves into these credit card jams and credit and they can't get
lack of knowledge.
From lack of knowledge.
Not even anything but just not knowing what to do.
Not knowing. And then I feel like a lot of times in society we're like, well, you should have known, but how are you supposed to know what questions to ask if you don't know anything?
Yeah, you don't know what you don't know. You don't even know that it exists to ask the question.
Exactly, man. So
and we don't teach it in school, and that's a whole big thing. I need to get some education people and talk to them about how we can at least financial fundamentals, like a new home ec class where you learn about credit and, amortization tables and all this stuff,
just to be able to help them, because those things are so important. Not that the school system doesn't have important things you need to learn, but I mean, these are vital tools that we use every single day to dictate how and what we do in our lives.
Yeah, at least so you can make good financial decisions. You don't got to be a real estate investor.
But, but you should at least know what credit is.
People go buy a car and have no clue what they just did with the car loan.
Yeah, that's what we learned. And I'm like, when we do the cash or refinance, we're going over their car and like, well, this car is like 20%.
20% interest. Yeah.
Oh my God! Like we got to get this paid off today. And they're like, well, I just needed a car and all these other, and they get stuck in these really bad financial decisions, and they don't know that, hey, if you just pay your credit cards down, your scores would have got up, and then you would have been able to qualify for what you wanted. Just like little tips that they could have, but we don't know it. So I'm always like real big and passionate on that.
Is there anything else that you want to tell the people about your business or yourself, or what's something a topic you've been thinking about?
Topic that I've been thinking about?
Anything.
I mean, this year, I would really love to, get at least, I would just like to just continue to keep getting more people started investing in real estate. I think it's a really big way to build wealth. So I would love that if I could talk to more people. I know how it is to get started, and you don't know, and you're nervous because you don't want to ask a dumb question. And I'm the type of person that asks like 1,000 questions, you know. And I've talked to people where I went to ask them questions, and they said that they won't answer my question because I need to pay them for their knowledge.
Oh, Lord.
Yeah. So
yeah, those guys.
Yeah.
I get it, but I mean, I think the pie's big enough for everybody.
I'm like, man, there's so much money out here, like, you know, and me and they have a great relationship where I would always ask them questions, and I don't know what it was, just eventually got to the point where he's just like, man, listen, like, you know, you want to ask me questions, you got to pay me for my knowledge. And I'm like, you know what? If that's how you want to be, then that's totally fine. But me personally, if I have the knowledge, I don't mind sharing it. What you do with it, that's on you. You know,
that's the thing.
Yeah.
That's why I'll tell everybody what I'm doing, because you know what? They're not going to do it anyway.
You know?
And if they do, I'll be happy they did.
I'm going to be excited, and I'll help you as much as I possibly can, but I can't do it for you.
Yep.
You know, but anyone can I mean, everything's on the internet. You can read and try to Google, and there's people that you can just reach out to and just say, hey, can you help me? You know, some people might say no. You know, the guy that we're settling on Monday, he just see me on Instagram and said, hey, man, how do I get started investing in real estate? And I walked him throughout the entire process. And now he's about to close on his first investment
So if
property.
someone's looking to get started, where should they go? Your website?
Yeah, they can go right onto the website and schedule a call with me. I have a link that says, hey, listen, I need mentorship and how to get started, or hey, I'm pretty good, but just how do I get the funding to fund my deals?
Cool,
so
man.
We fund.
I'll put it in the
Yeah.
Kyle's asking, how do people find you?
Most of my clients honestly find me through, well, referrals for one. But most of them find me from Facebook. My name is Dominique Flipping.
Do you have a business page, or
I
they
do.
got to add you as a friend?
No, I have a business page. It's Moving Forward in Lifestyle is our business
there
page.
We go.
And we do have a website, which is movingforwardinlifestyle.com as well. But on there, it has all of our contact information about me and way to schedule a call with me.
Cool, man.
So
Well, I super appreciate you for
Yeah,
coming.
man.
Super cool conversation. Hopefully this information was helpful for you guys.
Yeah.
And appreciate it, man.
Yeah. Got it, brother. Thanks for having me.
Yep. Dominique Flipping, Ryan Got the Bread podcast. See you guys next time.